person in it get out.
Yeah.
And it's hard for me to imagine that those people were not really badly burned. But anyway, should we go on?
Just trying to think. Well, one thing that people don't think about.
Yeah.
Electrical vehicles are so quiet that pedestrians can't always hear them coming.
There have been proposals that electric vehicles have special tires that are noisy.
They are now requiring the vehicles to make some noise.
Some noise.
Yep.
Okay, we are up to Tuesday, July 31st.
We got a nice picture.
We have a
coming
picture
up
here. That, by the way, is a cooling towers, and you can see kind of the plant in the background. The orange-colored cooling towers and transmission lines at a nuclear power plant in Germany. I forget the name of it.
It looks like it's pollution, but it's
that's
steam.
That's condensation. Yeah. This is from Think Progress.
Nuclear power is ridiculously expensive compared to solar, says a longtime nuclear advocate.
A longtime nuclear industry advocate and former head of the International Energy Agency, and I would assume that this guy knows what he's talking about, now says nuclear is too expensive compared to solar. Meanwhile, Bloomberg has repeatedly shown existing nuclear power plants are bleeding cash in quotes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let it be written that environmentalists did not kill the nuclear power industry, economics did.
Yes. Well, that I think is true, and that, you know, the experience in Vermont Yankee, the various organizations that opposed it, some of them were very effective in getting their specific things done, but the overall reason why that plant was closed was very largely because it was just too expensive to operate.
That's the bottom line, really. Economics.
Yeah, it
Economics did.
Okay.
This is a good article coming up. It's
Yeah.
a long article. It's a local article, and it's called "Greenhouse Gas Worsens Just as Climate Commission Releases Report."
This is from Vermont Biz.
So it's pretty local.
It's pretty local. The Vermont Climate Action Report sets forth goals for reducing greenhouse gas emissions and dealing with effects of climate change. It also contains discouraging news about the rise of greenhouse gas emissions in Vermont, which will make achieving ambitious goals challenging.
Well, in the U.S., greenhouse gas per capita emissions are dropping, but slowly.
Mm-hmm.
In Vermont, it's rising slowly.
Yeah.
And why is that happening?
Well, half of our emissions come from vehicles. We have almost no emissions of greenhouse gases coming from electricity generation.
There's not much electricity generation within Vermont.
There's more than there used to be after when Vermont Yankee closed. We're adding capacity, but not a huge amount of capacity. And there's very little capacity in Vermont that uses natural gas, which is the only greenhouse gas that we use for generating. And most of our power comes from what are called clean sources, including one nuclear plant in New Hampshire. But
and we're getting Hydro-Quebec.
Most of our a lot of our power, I don't know that it's most, but certainly a lot of our power is coming from Hydro-Quebec. But we have a lot of vehicles, and 50% approximately of our greenhouse gas emissions come from those vehicles. And we've got a lot of people heating with oil.
It's a mental thing with the marketplace.
Yeah.
People are less concerned with how warm they keep their homes and are steering away from lower mileage vehicles.
Yeah, well, it's depressing, but nevertheless, it is what it is. It's something that we have to deal with.
I guess.
And you know, it goes to show you that efficiency, for example, if we can increase efficiency levels, it's going to be good. So we should probably move on.
I think we can. We've got a picture coming up here.
We do have a picture of a solar array in China. This is from etenergyworld.com.
Solar panel glut is mooting muting
muting.
the effect of Trump tariffs on imports.
A steep global decline in the price of solar modules is nearly offsetting the effect of the Trump administration's 30% tariff on imported panels, the chief executive of SunPower said. The module price has dropped 12% since China reduced internal incentives. So this is really interesting. The Trump administration has put a 30% tariff on solar panels.
Yeah.
And what did the Chinese do?
They stopped making them.
They told their solar panel manufacturers, by the way, you know, you may have a problem with the United States, but we're going to reduce the incentives for putting solar panels up in China.
Yeah.
Which sounds like it's exactly the wrong response.
I would think.
But what they're doing is they're encouraging the export of those solar panels to all over the world.
Which is dropping the prices.
Which is, yeah, the China is now dumping solar. We were worried about China dumping solar panels.
So now
they're dumping solar panels. And we can't do anything about it because they're not dumping them in the United States.
Yeah.
And the Indians have said, well, we're going to put a big tariff on solar panels. Well, I got news for you. India is a place that only makes 5%. They have solar panel makers, but only for 5% of their demand. Where do their panels come from?
China.
China and Malaysia. So if they put a tariff on, the only effect that's going to have is going to be to increase the price of solar power.
Yeah.
You see, so this is a very complicated thing. I don't think Donald Trump
doesn't make sense.
I don't think Donald Trump understood what was going on. But the result of this is China is building trade relations all over the world.
Yep.
Because the United States, it's not directly because, but partly as a result of the United States imposing a tariff that the Chinese don't like. The Chinese are taking advantage of this. And the Chinese are taking advantage, I believe, of Donald Trump. Okay, we're up to Wednesday, August 1st, unless you've got more about that.
Massachusetts passes a compromise clean energy bill.
A compromise clean energy bill was passed by Massachusetts lawmakers, though it is less ambitious than the bill the state Senate passed in June. The legislation, which is now going to the governor's desk, quote, falls far short, end quote, of the state's version, the Sierra Club said. This is from Renewables Now, and this was a mixed bag. There were lots and lots and lots of articles on this, and some of them were saying this bill is terrible, it's not what we need, and others were saying this is a great bill, it's going to, you know, it just depends upon your point of view.
Well, the article says that the Massachusetts legislature took baby steps on clean energy legislation,
right,
when what is needed are giant strides.
Right, and I think this is probably one of the most even-handed articles I've seen on the subject. So that's the reason I wanted to take this, but a lot of different views on this. So,
well, in the background, we got a picture coming up.
Yep.
And it looks to me like a lot of forks
and spoons. It's forks and spoons. Hello. We have a visitor coming in.
Uh-huh.
Okay.
Let's see if I can't find that picture.
This is from Clean Technica. The picture is right there. And yeah, it's forks and spoons. So you have a title?
Yeah, what we're seeing with those forks and spoons are biodegradable plastics. And the title is Demand for Biodegradable Plastics Expected to Surge. This is an interesting and a very important article.
Yeah.
I think if anybody reads an article this week, this is the one they should read.
It's not my pick, but you know, we should have your pick and my pick of the week. You want to do that next week? Biodegradable plastics is a double-digit growth industry coming into its own from increased regulations and bans against plastic bags and other single-use plastic items. Concerns about plastic waste in the environment are contributing to worldwide demand for biodegradable plastics. This is from Clean Technica. And
well, what it's saying is that not all plastics are bad. That we can make plastics that will biodegrade, and you can put them in a landfill and they go away.
Many of the really earliest plastics were manufactured from casein, and they would just degrade. They're what are called milk plastics. Okay, you want to move on?
They make them from starch now.
They can, yeah. There are other things. We have one more item, and we should do it. So, oops.
So we don't need the picture.
We don't need a picture.
And I guess I pushed the wrong button here.
That's okay. You're allowed to push the wrong button sometimes. Here we have an item from Clean Technica.
UK clean electricity surpassed 50% in 2017 as renewables soar.
The latest figures published by the UK government show that renewable and clean energy sources continued to skyrocket, hitting 29.3% and 50.1% respectively, and led another strong year in wind energy generation. Clean energy, by the way, is defined as renewable energy plus nuclear, which is not something that I would call clean, but nevertheless, that's the way they have it.
Well, it's debatable. It's an arguable
yeah, it
thing. Well, there's some figures here. Wind generated a record total of 50 terawatt hours for the year.
Yep.
Anytime you see the word tera, you know it's big. That was half of all renewable energy generation. Now we're talking about UK here.
Yeah.
It is UK's cheapest power source.
Yep.
Hydro increased to 6 terawatt hours.
Yes.
Solar increased to 11.5.
Yep.
Okay.
You know, Tom,
coal generation fell by 70%.
We're going to have to close because we're coming to the end of our.
Well, this is our last article.
Yes, I know
And
that.
gas generation, which accounts for the majority of the UK's electricity supply, decreased by 5% in 2017.
Right.
So they're moving in the right direction, I guess.
We have a visitor in the studio, and for those people who want to know
two
who it is,
now.
you can go to. I think it's probably going to be on Channel 8. So switch over there and watch an interview with Valerie Stewart. And we'll see you soon, I hope. You want to click up and say goodbye to everybody?
Yeah, I guess we can.
We can do
I guess
that.
we can.
Okay.
I'm a little bit confused here.
You're a little confused. I'm confused too.
Here we go.
Bye, everybody.
Good evening. I want to convene the regular meeting of the Tuesday, August 7th of the Brattleboro Select Board. We know the meeting has been properly warned because we were here at 5:15 for an executive session. I would love to entertain a motion to approve the minutes of the July 17th meeting.
So moved.
We have a motion to approve the minutes of the July 17th meeting. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? No. Motion carries 3-0. I just want to make note that there are 3 of us here tonight, so any vote we take, if it's going to pass, it has to be by all 3 of us.
All right.
First up is chair's remarks, and all I have to say is it was really wet and hot out. So I can't think of anything else. So I'll pass it over to the town manager.
Thank you. And I just have a quick announcement. We did send a news release out about this, so I believe that some people in the public will have seen note of it that way. But to reach a wider audience, we want everybody to know that on Friday at midday, the town offices will be closed for an hour and a half between 11:30 and 1 p.m., with the exception of the town clerk's office, which will be open for people all day long from 8:30 in the morning to 5 p.m. on Friday, and then again from 9 a.m. until noon on Saturday for early voting in the primary election. But the other town offices will be closed for the town employees to gather for our annual picnic, which we always do in the early part of August. So again, that's from 11:30 until 1 p.m. on Friday the 10th. All the emergency services, of course, will be provided as usual throughout the community.
Thank you, Peter.
Thank you.
Does anyone on the select board have any comments or committee reports that they'd like to make at this particular moment?
I don't.
I don't either.
Great. Form of whipping. Now it's time for public participation, which is the time in the meeting where the public is given the opportunity to weigh in on any issue that is not on tonight's agenda. So would anyone like to weigh in? Dick? And please come and tell us who you are and where you're from. Although we know who you are, Dick.
Gray, Brattleboro. I have 3 issues I want to talk about briefly. No particular order, but one of importance to me is we have a historic covered bridge in West Brattleboro. And the real travesty about the historic covered bridge is you couldn't find it with Google Maps. It is so overgrown on both sides of the bridge that you can't see the bridge anymore. And I'm going to ask you to try to find some funding in your budget, because I certainly don't think that the rec department and their staffing and or Public Works has the people to get in there and clean up and do the job that's need to be done to clean up all that scrub brush, and that's all it is scrub brush. A couple of years ago, I was able to get the horticulture department up at the high school to get down there, and or the woods program, whatever that is, to get in there and clean up. And you could, when you were traveling down Western Ave, traveling east, you could see the bridge, pick it up, and it really looked good to be able to see it. And actually, we had it, if you were heading out of town, you could pick it up. Nothing on the western side has ever been done. And I was on the bridge 2 weeks ago on a Saturday, and a painter came down, and he wanted to paint the bridge. He was from Claremont, New Hampshire. And he said, "This is so overgrown that I guess I'll have to come back in the fall when all the leaves have fallen off all of these trees." And I think it's a real travesty that we don't maintain that and get it cleaned up, and then get it as part of the budget so it is treated, it is trimmed every year just like we cut the grass, so people can see that beautiful, beautiful bridge. We have people coming every day, and that picture is getting smaller because of that overgrowth is not being cut back. So if you could find a way to do that, especially with fall foliage season coming up, that would be deeply appreciated.
I'm down with that.
Item 2 for me, listening to the news today, always disappointed when I hear that the pool is going to close August 19th. I think we need to do a better job in keeping that pool open until the day after Labor Day. I've said this before, I said it as a board member. We need to, I know they say that they lose their lifeguards, but there was a big thing on the news where older people, retired people are becoming lifeguards because they can't find younger lifeguards. So I think we need to find a way to be able to keep that pool open. We just spent $500,000 on it last year, and to have it open for 6 weeks is not a good expenditure of money.
I agree with that too.
The last thing I want to ask you about is I was here in June, and Kate, you weren't here, and I was talking about the panhandling issue and what a severe problem that it has become and how it has changed downtown. Mr. Scholes and Mrs. Ganders, Tim wasn't here either, asked to have it put on the agenda. We're into the first week of August, and I have not seen anything on the agenda. I spoke to Mr. Fisher about an idea I had. I actually mentioned it to Kate. I mentioned it to Tim. I thought I briefly touched about it with you, not in a long conversation, down at the picnic. And I also spoke to the chief about doing an ordinance where people can panhandle versus to where they can't, because everybody seems to be hung up on this free speech issue. and I haven't heard back from anybody. I don't know what research anybody has done, but I would ask you to get this on the agenda because it has become an increasingly difficult problem downtown, even from when I was here before, and I would love to be part of a discussion for that. Thank you.
Thank you,
Thanks,
Dick.
I agree with points 1 and 2 there.
Is there anyone else? Yes, please come on up. We've missed you.
Yeah, Nick. That was a nice surprise to see you.
It's nice to be out of my apartment and among young, healthy people.
We're glad you're
Consider
here.
yourself young.
Thank you.
I'm Nick Nickerson, 5 years in Brattleboro, 67 years in the South. And one of my pet worries is the increasing power of the drug cartels. Thankfully, they're still fighting among themselves. If there's ever one universal drug cartel, we're in big trouble. And I just read in the Week magazine, a tremendous little magazine, and if Director Starr is listening, maybe she could get it for the library. An article discussed the elections in Mexico beginning last September and ending just recently. During that time, 120 candidates for office were killed by the drug cartels because they weren't their men. They didn't speak for drug cartels. And I worry that this is going to spread to America. There's nothing to stop them. They have trillions of dollars. They're absolutely ruthless. You have a choice between giving into a bribe, which is called plata, or giving into the lead from a bullet, which is called plomo, plata o plomo. Well, there's no way we can resist that. I don't even think the chief could resist it, especially if you were told your family would be eliminated if you didn't go along with a small task that they wanted you to do. So I hope that we will eliminate this farcical, tragic war on drugs and allow drugs to be legalized and given and monitored by the government. Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank
Nick.
you.
Thanks for coming out of your apartment and joining us again. It's been a long time.
Yeah.
Appreciate that.
Yes.
Is there anyone else in the public who would like to talk about something that's not on tonight's agenda? Seeing none, we're going to move on. We're going to wait and convene as liquor commissioners to talk about the Brattleboro Area Prevention Coalition. Cassandra Holloway has a conflict and she's going to get here as soon as she can. And when she gets here, then we will go wherever it fits into the agenda. We're going to go into liquor commissioners.
Babies out there.
So our first order of business is actually unfinished business, and that's the downtown parking matters.
Right on.
And I think what we're going to do is we're going to have we're going to hear a presentation by Patrick. Then we'll have the select board ask questions, and then we'll open it up to the public to ask questions and make comments, and then we'll decide what we want to do.
Great.
And this is the first of 2 meetings where we're going to discuss 2 separate sets of issues. And tonight is mostly about parking payment options.
Excellent, thank you. And good evening, everybody.
Good evening.
So just a little bit of history, kind of how we got here, and I'm sure the board will recall that last year in 2017, the town engaged the services of Desmond Design Management to assist us in a parking study that was work primarily needed for the planning office in the preparation to the new town plan. But we were thankful for their work, and they assigned Andy Hill, and he and his staff took a look at the parking capacity in Brattleboro. They took a look at our usage patterns, and they also examined the needs for infrastructure improvements. They delivered a report to the select board, final report with a series of recommendations, and the board got to review that, and that was in May of 2018. Since that time, the board has taken up parking issues on 2 separate occasions, on May 15th and again on June 5th. And in each of those discussions, one of the objectives was to decide how best to implement some of the recommendations coming out of that report. tonight, specifically, what we'll be taking a look at is smart parking, some very needed repairs in the transportation center, and bicycle parking in the downtown, which were issues raised in the parking report. Now, what has been really clear, I've been trying to listen to what's coming from the board in terms of what are